What's up, everyone? JJ Buckets here, yours truly, and of course, you know the drill by now. It's time to talk basketball. Now, for today's video, it's a fun one, and it's one that I really enjoyed doing because it gave me an opportunity to interact with all of you, where I asked that if there were any topics or questions that you wanted me to discuss, to either leave it on YouTube for me in the last video that I posted, or on socials, mostly on Instagram. And I got a bunch of really fun ones sent in that I'm super excited here to talk about. And if you like me making content like this, where I answer a bunch of your questions and such, leave a like below. That way I know you're enjoying the content and you want to see more of this, and I'll make another one of these in the future. Now, without further ado, let's hop straight into the first topic. So this question comes from New to Noobs, I want to say. He's asking, are the Golden State Warriors a real threat this postseason? And I guess the answer here to me depends on what you define as a real threat. If you're asking whether or not they're a threat in the sense that they could take a series or two, yeah, I could see that. I could see the Warriors potentially making the Western Conference Finals as they are. But if the question is whether or not they're good enough to say, come out of the West, go to the NBA Finals and maybe win it, I don't think so. I honestly don't. Steph Curry is one of my favorite players of all time, but I just don't think there's enough around him to really make that finals run and to potentially win it. Now, this could change. I think if they make some kind of big splash trade for a potential co-star to pair with Steph before this year's playoffs, you could convince me that this team would make noise in the postseason. It could potentially come out of the West. But if they don't do that, I really can't see it. The next question comes from Instagram, and it comes from Curtis asking, is a Lowry trade something that you're emotionally ready for? If so, what do you want in return? I do think I am emotionally ready for a Kyle Lowry trade. If I'm being quite honest, I've been emotionally ready for it for a while because at the end of the day, the NBA is a business, and I think of all people, Masai knows that. You saw it, with the DeMar DeRozan trade. So I think in that sense, you realize that really no one's safe out here. No one is safe out here. So I think there's a good chance that Kyle Lowry doesn't finish his career with the Raptors, and that's okay. Because in my eyes, I would love to see that trade, potentially ship him off to a contender where he could go and compete for one more championship and add to what should be a Hall of Fame career. And in that regard, what would I want in return, to answer the second part of the question? I guess it really depends on the scenario, but in the most likely outcome, where I see it as a move where the Raptors decide that they're not good enough to compete for anything this season and just want to get draft capital, I would say a good young prospect from another team and 2 first rounders I think is more than enough for me to, and obviously whoever, to balance out the cap numbers, obviously, because Kyle Lowry does make a fair amount of money. But yeah, with all that being said, that's more or less what I'd look for in the package of a dude that I'm obviously not going to be excited to see go, but like I said, the NBA's business. Riley Freeman asks, can the Nets' offensive talent be enough to carry that horrible bench and D? It depends on what they're being carried to. If it's the question of whether it's good enough to carry them to a good record and potentially maybe even out of the East, yeah, I think so. I think in the playoffs, having those kinds of star players really does make a difference, where it's a lot more half-court focused, and a lot of these guys can just take over in the half-court, like a Kevin Durant, like a James Harden, even like a Kyrie Irving. I would want to see them, potentially get that buyout that they're talking about for Andre Drummond to really feel good about their idea of coming out of the Eastern Conference, but it's a little besides the point. So if the question is their offensive talent good enough to carry them to a solid record and maybe an Eastern Conference, championship, you could convince me. I'm not entirely sold, but you could convince me on it. But as they stand, if we're talking about carrying them to a championship, no, I don't think so. I don't think in the current construction of this team that they are anywhere near good enough to get a series over the Lakers. Hell, I'll even go one further. I don't think a series with the Lakers would go to 7 games. I think the Lakers would finish them off before 7 because I really think that Lakers team is so well constructed in terms of just top to bottom. They have a bunch of really good role players and like just good players and good pieces surrounding and complementing Anthony Davis and LeBron James that I don't see any reality in which the offensive talent on the Nets is enough to take down the Lakers, especially when they have nobody, and I mean nobody, to slow down Anthony Davis. Sir Ross wants me to talk about LeBron James trying to end Joel Embiid's career. Now, for those of you who don't know what he's referring to, in the matchup between the Sixers and the Lakers, LeBron James gave Embiid a fairly generous, I would say, shove when Embiid went up for a dunk attempt, and it led to him landing hard, and obviously with Embiid's history of back problems, it looked like a dangerous play.
Embiid battling with Gasol, fights him off. Oh, and he goes down hard, lands on his back, and he's hurt.
So this by no means was the smartest move by LeBron James, but maybe it was. Maybe LeBron James really wants to add another MVP to his resume. And maybe, just maybe, this was LeBron's way of taking out the competition. The next question here comes from Ryan, and he asks, what would you be willing to give up in a trade for Bradley Beal? I think this is an interesting one. I actually did a collaborative video with Clutch Takes where we discussed the possibility of the Raptors going after Bradley Beal. So if you want to see like the full details of it, you can go check out that video. It was a really fun video to make. But to sum up in short, ideally, I'd like to see the Raptors not lose Pascal in this trade. I'd like to see them potentially do a 3-team trade where Kyle Lowry goes to a contender, where a contender that has better young players than us sends them to the Wizards, and then we send like however many picks is needed to bring Bradley Beal to this team. I think that's the perfect scenario for me in terms of what I would be willing to give up. But at most, I would honestly say I would be okay with giving up Pascal. I wouldn't be thrilled about it, but Pascal, a couple picks, and like maybe like, I don't know, a young guy like Terrence Davis or Malachi Flynn, that's probably not going to be enough based on what I've heard in terms of the asking price of what the Wizards want for Beal, and on top of which, apparently Bradley Beal wants to stay in Washington for whatever ungodly reason, so there's also that. But nonetheless, that is more or less how I would want a potential Bradley Beal to the Raptors trade shaking down. The next question here comes from Renzo. First of all, shout out Renzo. I guess this technically makes it your second appearance on the channel. But he asks, is LaMelo Ball the clear frontrunner for Rookie of the Year? Here's the thing. The way it's worded, clear frontrunner, to me implies that he's just so ahead of the pack that nobody can catch him and that he's just like head and shoulders above every other rookie. So in that sense, I would say no, he's not the clear frontrunner. I think guys like James Wiseman, I think guys like Tyrese Halliburton, and even Emmanuel Quickley, I would say is a dark horse pick for me. Shout out to Knicks fans. You guys have had a poverty franchise for a while, and especially you've experienced some real poverty at that point guard position. I do think Quickley is hopefully the long-term answer there. I think all those guys could easily still come in and swoop this award away from LaMelo. So in that sense, I don't think he's the clear frontrunner, but at this point in time, I would probably say that I do think he's the favorite. The last question or topic here comes from It's Okay I'm Russian, which sweet handle, by the way, like, love it. Things the Raptors can do to win a ring this year and not their year is not an option. So, I gotta be completely honest, 99.9% of the time when somebody would ask me this question, I would honestly say that it's not their year because, let's be realistic about this, it's really probably not. But, I mean, it's not an option, so I guess I'll throw this at you. You go get Bradley Beal without surrendering Pascal Siakam. That's honestly pivotal in this regard. You go get Andre Drummond, And as much as I'm not a fan of having non-shooting threats on the court for the Raptors system, they do desperately need to upgrade the 5 spot, and Andre Drummond, I think, is the best option out there, especially because it shores up rebounding a lot for this team, which they need help with. So you go get Andre Drummond, and man, even past that, it's hard to really do any moves because, I mean, in any Bradley Beal trade, you're obviously going to be giving up a lot of draft capital. So, like, if you're doing that, the stepping rule is really going to get in the way of the Raptors, you know, giving up more first rounders to go get somebody else that could really take them over the top. So I guess I would just kind of stick it at that. Do I think a team of, let's say, Van Vliet, because I think, you know, if you're going to go get Beal, you're losing Lowry. Do I think a team of Van Vliet, Bradley Beal, OG, Pascal, and Drummond is a championship team? Probably not, if I'm being completely honest. But do I think that's the closest they can get in terms of putting a championship roster out there with what's seemingly available in the trade market and within their ability of chasing? Yeah, that's really it. Does that team win a chip? Probably not, but gives them a chance. So what did you folks think? Did you enjoy me going through the mailbag? If you did, like the video and let me know. If I see a lot of likes on this, I'll make sure to make another one of these in the future, because obviously it's a good sign that this is the kind of content that you want to see. Other than that, give me a comment too and let me know which of these answers that you disagree with, and regarding which topic, obviously. Subscribe to the channel as well. I talk about it all the time, but it's a great way to help the channel grow, and honestly, it puts a smile on my face. Like, I go to bed with just a big smile on my face whenever I see a video doing well. So, if you want to make sure I don't go through sad boy hours right before I fall asleep, do the good stuff for me. Other than that, folks, thanks again for watching the video and all that good stuff. And I am done here for the day, so sayonara.